You know, one of the biggest things holding back generative AI in the enterprise, it isn't the technology, it's trust. The truth is, most Gen AI systems would fail a governance audit today, and for a really simple reason. All their safety roles are just trapped in documents and slide decks, totally disconnected from what's actually running in production. So today, we're going to explain how you can bridge that massive gap by treating your policy just like you treat your code.
This quote right here, it just cuts straight to the heart of the problem. A policy that isn't automatically enforced is really just a suggestion. And, well, suggestions don't stop brand-damaging outputs, and they definitely don't prevent regulatory fines. When you're operating at enterprise scale, hope is not a control system. Trust has to be something you can verify, you can audit, and that you've engineered right into the core of your system.
And this slide really shows you that fundamental disconnect. On one hand, you have where policies usually start out as guidelines, right? Stacks of paper, wiki pages, checklists. But for them to have any real power, any teeth, they have to be translated into actual code that lives and breathes inside your development and deployment pipelines. If you don't make that translation, your governance strategy is, well, it's pretty much just security theater.
So the big question is, how do we get from these lifeless guidelines to active living enforcement? The solution, it really requires a huge shift in how we think about governance. We've got to start treating our policies with the exact same rigor and discipline as our application code. And this is the core idea right here. Policy as code. It's all about defining your AI's guardrails, what it absolutely can and cannot do in structured version files. When you do this, you get rid of all the ambiguity, you remove the chance for human error, and you enable the machine itself to enforce the rules automatically.
So let's make this tangible. Here's a super simple example of a policy.yaml file. Just look at how clear that is. It's not just something a human can read. It's something a machine can enforce without question. We can explicitly say no PII, no legal advice. We can mandate behaviors like you must refuse to answer if you're not sure. And we can set hard thresholds like a zero-tolerance policy for violations. It's unambiguous and perfectly auditable. The payoff here is just profound because we're tapping into decades of proven best practices from software engineering. Suddenly, your AI policy gets reviewed through pull requests. It's versioned in Git, giving you a perfect audit trail. And, most importantly, it's enforced automatically by your CI/CD system. You're bringing all that DevOps discipline to AI governance.
Okay, so where does this enforcement actually happen? Well, a truly solid system needs a two-layer defense. You need one gate before any code gets deployed, and you need a second gate that's live, in the production environment. Let's break down each one.
The first gate is your proactive defense. It's built right into your CI/CD pipeline. So before a new model or even a new prompt can get merged into your main branch, it gets automatically tested against that central policy file.
And the response is immediate. It's automatic. If a test run accidentally spits out forbidden content, the build fails. Period. If the model doesn't behave the way it's required to, build fails. This system physically prevents risky code from ever shipping. And it kills that dangerous, we'll just fix it in prod mindset, right at the source. But look, pre-deployment checks, they're not enough on their own. Models can drift, and clever users are always finding new ways to poke holes in them. And that's exactly why you need a second gate, an unbiasable guardian that sits in runtime, inspecting every single response before a user ever sees it. Here's how it works in real time. The LLM generates a response, but before it goes anywhere, the policy engine intercepts it. It acts like a bouncer. It checks that response against your policy.yaml file. If there's a violation, it can just block it, or maybe redact the sensitive part, or return a safe, pre-written answer. The user never even knows a violation happened. The model doesn't get to decide if it's compliant. The policy engine does. Now, this is a question that comes up constantly. Hey, can't we just tell the model what to do in the system prompt? You are a helpful assistant who never gives legal advice. Why isn't that good enough? Because at the end of the day, prompts are suggestions. They are not deterministic commands. They can absolutely guide a model's behavior, but they cannot guarantee it, especially when faced with a clever adversarial prompt. A policy engine, because it's a totally separate component sitting outside the model, provides that hard, auditable guarantee that prompts just can't. It's the difference between asking nicely and enforcing a law. Now, a common fear is that putting in all this robust governance is just going to slow everybody down. But when you do it right, policy as code actually fixes one of the biggest points of friction inside most modern organizations. You've all seen this movie before. The security and compliance teams, they need hard guarantees. The product team needs to ship new features like yesterday. And the engineering team, they just want to automate everything to cut down on manual work. These three goals always seem to be fighting each other.
Policy as code is what resolves this tension, and the secret is automation. The governance checks just happen automatically in the pipeline. A violation isn't someone's opinion. It's an objective, black and white pass or fail. And because the whole thing is versioned and automated, audits become simple and totally reproducible. Everybody gets what they need. What this actually means, day to day, is that you get to eliminate all those manual governance bottlenecks. Your developers get instant feedback right in their pipeline instead of waiting weeks for a review board. Approvals are automated, not something you have to chase down. This prevents those awful last-minute surprises that kill release dates, and it lets your teams move fast because they know they're safe.
So let's zoom out a little. This isn't just about security checklists or satisfying the compliance team. This is about building a better product. It's about starting to treat trust not as some fuzzy, abstract goal, but as a core, engineered feature of your system.
And there's a huge product impact to all of this engineering discipline that, honestly, is very often missed.
So who are we actually building this trust for? Well, first, it's for your users, who will learn that they can rely on your AI to be consistent and safe. It's for regulators, who you can show a deterministic, fully auditable system to. And, maybe most importantly, it's for your enterprise customers, who simply will not buy your product without verifiable proof that it's compliant and safe.
This right here is the ultimate takeaway. Our AI systems don't become trustworthy because we cross our fingers and hope developers are careful. They become trustworthy because we engineer the system in such a way that makes policy violations impossible to ship and impossible for the end user to ever see. At the end of the day, policy as code is what transforms generative AI from a high-potential risk into a governed, reliable, and truly scalable enterprise system. It is the gate that separates cool experiments from real production readiness. So the question you should be asking in your own organization is this: is your trust just documented somewhere, or is it truly enforced?